Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we will review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Sukkah, pages 18 through 24. Yudchet 18. If a person were to put schach in between sections of a roofed portico, then that sukkah is kosher, provided that there are patzimin, that there are posts at the edge of the portico, and these posts can function as the defanot, as the walls of the sukkah. Shema patzimin, however, what if there are no posts? Abaya Amar Keshera, Rav Amar Pasula. Abaya says the sukkah is kosher, and Rava says the sukkah is not kosher. Why does Abaya say kosher? Because he applies the halachic principle of pitik rayord v'sotem, that the edge of the roof will extend downward and seal and create imaginary walls for the sukkah. Whereas Rava says Pasula, invalid lormin pitik rayord v'sotem. He does not apply the concept of pitikra, of the edge of the roof sealing downward in this instance. Yudtet 19. The Mishnah tells us the following. If a person were to make a sukkah in the shape of a conical hut, so that there is no real difference between the side walls and the roof, but rather it all blends together, or smachala kotel, that there is a floor and there's a vertical side wall, but there is a diagonal piece of schach that is functioning simultaneously as the other wall and as the roof, that is not kosher. So the Mishnah says, Rabbi Eliezer posel, not kosher, it has no real roof. The roof and the wall are being intermingled and impossible to distinguish one from the other. Whereas the sages say, no, in these cases of the conical hut and the smachala kotel, it is kosher. The Gemara then says that we have to flip the opinions, that in fact, Rabbi Eliezer is the one who says kosher, and the Chachamim are the ones who say invalid, and therefore the halacha is that if you make a sukkah of this variety, it's going to be invalid. Daf Chaf, page 20. The Mishnah says as follows. Hayashen tachat tamita if you sleep under a bed in a sukkah, you do not fulfill your obligation. And then the Mishnah tells a story. Maaseh betavi Abdul Shoban Gamliel. There's an incident involving the servant of Gamliel, whose name was Tavi. He was sleeping under the bed. And Gamliel said to the elders who were with him, Ritem Tavi Avdi Shutam Chacham. Look at my servant Tavi. He's a Torah scholar. And he knows that the servant class, Avadim Knanim, are exempt from the mitzvah of Sukkah because it is a mitzvah taseh shazman grama, a positive time-bound commandment. And therefore, because he knows he's exempt, that is why he sleeps under the bed, which would not be a proper fulfillment, and he doesn't have to fulfill because he is exempt. Daf Chaf 21. The Mishnah says that if you support the schach with the karei amita, the bedposts of a bed frame, that the sukkah is invalid. Why is it invalid? Because not only is it true that the schach itself cannot be mekabel tumah, it cannot be from an item, a substance, which is susceptible to impurity, it is also true that you cannot be ma'amid, you cannot support the schach, even if the schach is made of kosher material, if the item which is the ma'amid, which is the supporting element, is itself a kli, a utensil, a vessel, which is mekabel tumah. So therefore, it's important when constructing a sukkah to make sure that whatever schach you're using, whether it's bamboo mats or individual sticks, are not being held up by metallic items or by kelim, by utensils which are mekabel tumah. Chaf bet 22. Tanu Rabbanan. Sukkah hama'uva kamin bait. What happens if you have a sukkah whose roof, whose schach, is very, very thick, like the roof of a house? Even though it is impossible to see the stars by looking through this roof of the sukkah is still kosher. This is a common misconception among people. They think that if you can't see the stars, the sukkah is invalid. No, it's not true. Preferably, you should be able to see the stars at night. So it is codified in the Shulchan Aruch. However, if you can't, it's still kosher. However, what if the sukkah roof is so thick that even daylight cannot get through? It will be dark in the daytime in the sukkah. Beit Shammai posted. Beit Shammai says that already is too thick. It's an invalid sukkah. Beit Hillel Machshir and Beit Hillel says no, it's still a kosher sukkah. Of course, you would need some kind of artificial light to be able to function inside, like a candle or an electric light. Chaf Gimel. Tanya. What happens if you make a sukkah on top of a boat? on the deck of a boat. Rabban Gamliel posel. Gamliel says, invalid, you can't do it. Rabbi Akiva machshir. Rabbi Akiva says, it is kosher. Maaseh Rabban Gamliel v'Rabbi Akiva shuban besfina. And now there's a story. Both Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva were on a boat together on the holiday of Sukkot. And what happened? Amar Rabbi Akiva v'aseh sukkah b'rosh hasfina. Rabbi Akiva, who said you can build a sukkah in this environment, went ahead and built a sukkah and tried to fulfill the mitzvah. But what happened? Very shortly thereafter, a gust of wind came and knocked over the sukkah. So what happened? Amar lo Rabban Gamliel Akiva hechan sukkatcha. Somewhat mockingly, Rabban Gamliel said to Rabbi Akiva, Akiva knew what happened to your sukkah, it blew over, which goes to show you that I was right, that you can't make a sukkah on the deck of a ship because it's not an environment conducive for making a structure. Chaf Daled. Here the Gemara turns away from matters of sukkah for a moment and discusses divorce. It happens to be the case that kiddushin, sanctification, marriage, can take place by one of three means: kesef, shtar, or bia, by money or a thing of financial value, by a contract, or by marital relations. So, in certain respects, the Torah, the halacha, compares entering into marriage to exiting the marriage. Itkash yitzia lahavaya. There is a comparison, exegetical comparison between yitzia, divorce, getting out of the marriage, and havaya, the creation of, the existence of the marriage. Mahavaya b'kesef, af yitzia b'kesef. And you might have thought that just as marriage can be contracted by means of money, so too it can be ended and severed by means of money. Therefore, the Torah says, Sefer Kritut, the book of divorcement, Sefer Kortav Devaracher Korta, that a book, a piece of paper, a parchment, is the means by which you can end the marriage, the divorce document, the get, and no other mechanism exists to sever the marital bonds, of course, other than the death of the husband. But putting that aside, all the various methods of kiddushin don't work for divorce. For gerushin, the only method that works is the Sefer Kritut, the bill of divorcement, which is written on paper. Everyone have a great week.